Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 664 for the 27th of June 2021. Richard Saunders coming to you from lockdown. Yes, Sydney once again has been cast into the pit of lockdown due to the outbreak of the Delta variation, the Delta variant of COVID-19 out and about in the community and spreading rapidly. And this current lockdown is scheduled to last 2 weeks for the Greater Sydney area, plus up north, down south, and other restrictions around the rest of the state. And this news sort of leads us on to the first segment in today's show, where we read to you more of those COVID clunkers. Those wacky, crazy conspiracy theorists are at it again, distributing their leaflets and flyers about anti-vaccination and COVID's just a conspiracy. So coming up at the top of the show, more COVID madness. Following that, you can count on Adrienne. And this week, Adrienne's special guest is Kelly Burke. And Kelly has been helping on the Great Australian Predition Project now for many, many months. And together, they look at some of the more wafflely predictions. Some of the more, what, where, what? And we like the term waffles because waffles have maple syrup. And so do psychics, it seems. After that, it's another installment from the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham. And this week, Tim will be looking at Seers, Spies and Satan. Then to round off the show, we look into those Trove archives once again, the digitised newspapers and gazettes and periodicals, magazines and so on, and we look for references to the word psychic and the word fraud in the same report. Yes, lockdown again. Well, maybe it's a good time for staying indoors. Haven't got much choice, really. And wrapping up in a nice warm blanket and slowing down a bit and being nice and cozy. Or gemütlich, as it's said in German. Or in Dutch, I think it's knus. And in Japanese, I think it's inoko chiniyoi. Or something like that. Whatever language you speak, I hope you're feeling nice and cozy and warm. Maybe it's somewhere where you are. Sort it out. Anyway, now it's time for me to run downstairs. In fact, I've cheated. People, I cheated. I've already run downstairs and I've made myself some big crusty toast with peanut butter. While I enjoy that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. You know, this time last year, looking at the situation with COVID-19, I guess we were sort of under the impression that surely by the end of 2020, things would be getting back to normal. We would have flattened the curve. Do you remember that? But here we are at the end of June 2021, and Sydney is once again facing lockdown because of the COVID-19, the Delta strain, out and about in the Sydney community. And just as persistent as COVID-19 are the COVID-19 conspiracy theorists and anti-vaccination crowd. Now, I, like many of you, have been vaccinated. Well, I've had my first vaccination in some weeks down the track. I think about 6 weeks, I will be getting my second vaccination. But yes, the tireless conspiracy theorists are out and about with their flyers, and people have been receiving flyers either in the post or they've noticed them being put up around town, around the country, and even a very prominent businessman and ex-politician has been hard at it with the COVID-19 conspiracy theories. I thought I would relay a few more to you today. Now, thanks to a listener to the Skeptic Zone, Shane Robertson, we have an example of a flyer, and the message reads, I listen, and he sent this, by the way, to our reporter Heidi Robertson. I listened to you on the Skeptic Zone. You probably have already heard, but just in case, I got a flyer in my mailbox in East Ballina today, attached below. Now, East Ballina is in the same Northern Rivers area as Heidi Robertson and the Northern Rivers vaccination supporters, the area in New South Wales with the highest amount of conspiracy theorists, I would dare say, anti-vaxxers. And he goes on to thank Heidi for her good work, which we all do, of course, and the flyer in question. It's a strange one. It's like a big cartoon. And right at the top it says, The People's Revolution. Raise fists. And their logo is a lion. And behind the lion, I'll add a male lion, so it's the one with the big mane. Behind the male lion are two arms, human arms, rising up with victory signs. Maybe the lion already ate the person before the picture, I don't know. Anyway, we've got two people sitting on a park bench. One is reading the newspaper, one is sort of tapping away on his phone, and the one reading the newspaper, the headline says, COVID fear. And he is saying, looks like the Queensland COVID emergency powers expire in 14 days. And the other man says, don't worry, I'm sure they'll find more, quote, cases, end quote, to extend it again. And the URL at the bottom is thepeoplesrevolution.com.au. Oh, hello, there's a little autograph at the bottom, Steve Hunter. So whoever Steve Hunter is probably did the artwork, I think. That's the way it works, or it could be a generic piece of artwork that it's been manipulated, not sure. But there you are, blatant conspiracy theory, implying that the COVID cases are just, probably fake or made up. And on what I assume is the flip side, in big letters, Australia, January the 1st to May 23rd, 2021, COVID-19 deaths, 1. COVID-19 vaccine deaths, 210. COVID-19 vaccine adverse events, 22,031. Australian Government Department of Health Therapeutics Goods Administration, and with the URL to the source. And we know these figures are taken completely out of context, but that doesn't stop the vaccination conspiracy theorists. And speaking of Heidi Robertson, she has posted a flyer or a sticker. It's a sticker. And this sticker appeared in the Northern Rivers town of Bangalow, a tiny little town in that same area. And I guess Bangalow is like Mullumbimby. It's a heartland of anti-vaccination and conspiracy theorists. The sticker in question has a picture of lots of vegetables, which will be mentioned in a minute, and 5 glasses full of what looks like a green slime, a green sludge. It says, COVID/flu shots, 6 kale leaves, half a bunch of parsley, 1 cucumber, 4 celery ribs, 3 small apples, half a lemon. So there you go, you make up this green sludge, and according to this sticker, it's a COVID or flu shot. Despicable, absolutely despicable. And finally, from the former politician, is he still a politician? I don't think so, Clive Palmer, a man who's larger than life, really larger than life. He is a millionaire. He was in the Australian Parliament for a while anyway. And he, with his vast fortune, has been distributing flyers, including this one, on a yellow background with black writing, although the top is the opposite. It's black with big yellow text. COVID-19 vaccine concerns, it says. Men and women of Australia, I feel duty-bound to bring the following to your attention. And just quickly, that's irksome to a lot of people. because that was the famous opening to speeches by a much-loved former Prime Minister by the name of Gough Whitlam, who was Prime Minister in the early 1970s, and he began his speeches at rallies and things by saying, "Men and women of Australia." And that was very famous. So it's a bit irksome that this character is using that line nevertheless. Men and women of Australia, I feel duty-bound to bring the following to your attention. Revelations that 2 Australians were ill following the administration of COVID vaccine were disturbing, and it's difficult to understand how there could be overdoses administered by registered practitioners. While I strongly support the use of vaccines which have approval for general use, such as measles and other diseases, I am very concerned by the emergency use of this vaccine on the general population. My understanding is that emergency use of a medicine is only authorized if the person receiving the treatment is in immediate danger of dying. This is not the case with millions of Australians who are not ill. The simple fact is that we don't have 1-year safety data, 3-year safety data, or 5-year safety data for the use of the COVID-19 vaccine on humans or animals. I do not understand why it is that millions of Australians should be subject to a medical treatment that has not complied with the normal practices under Australian law. The governments around Australia have done a great job in protecting all Australians from COVID-19, and for healthy Australians to receive an emergency treatment is, as I understand it, unprecedented. I don't understand why Australians need to rush to take risks with their health, and I don't understand why the Australian government has guaranteed the pharmaceutical companies an indemnity should their COVID-19 vaccines cause illness or death. It would appear these pharmaceutical companies lack the confidence in their products that makes them ask for such indemnity. We need to maintain the very high standards Australia has set for itself in the approvals of vaccines. God bless Australia, Clive Palmer. Now, incidentally, Clive was also campaigning a year or 2 back under the banner, "Make Australia Great Again." And I notice Clive has been taken to task in the media for some of these comments. I will link to that clip in this week's show notes so you can see that for yourself. But yes, COVID-19 is not going away anytime soon, and neither are the conspiracy theorists and the anti-vaccination crowd.
Hi, this is Jo, and I've got an announcement about Zealot. I took an extended break from recording and releasing episodes, and some of you absolute legends have been messaging me asking if the podcast is coming back. Sometimes quite aggressively, but look, you're passionate and you like stories about the worst people in the whole world. So, after a bit of a relax and a bit of a think, I've decided that Zealot won't be coming back. There's no bad reason for that at all. I've had the best possible time making Zealot, and the response to it has wildly exceeded my expectations. It led to me writing a book and recording a live episode in Canada and speaking to so many people I admire and making jokes at the expense of exploitative narcissists. My favourite! It's been incredible, and I'm just done. I'd like to finish Zealot while it's a grape, not a raisin, and as my 8th favourite jingle says, it's gotta end sometime, it's gotta end sometime, it's gotta end sometime, it's gotta end sometime, it's gotta end sometime. Thank you to every single guest who helped me talk about these bizarre, awful, fascinating cults. Thank you to the cheese and wine shops in 3 different neighbourhoods for helping me feed my guests. Thank you to Jerry, aka the Everglades, for my ridiculous jingles. And oh my God, thank you to every single listener. What a bloody ride, eh? Don't join a cult.
You can count on Adrienne with Adrienne Hill.
A while back, I reported that fellow GSOW editor and friend, Kelly Burke, had become really frustrated with us having difficulty categorizing a prediction in the Great Australian Predition Project. She's going to join me today, I'm so excited, to review some of the more entertaining predictions we have come across. And they're going to be the most waffly, covered in Canadian maple syrup, and eyebrow-raising predictions of them all. Hey, Kelly, I'm so looking forward to doing this with you. Can you start us off with explaining the process a little bit?
Hey, Adrienne, I'm excited to be here. So, when we're going through predictions, we categorize them as correct, wrong, expected, unknown, or vague. So something that's expected would be like, there is going to be an earthquake in the world this year. It happens every year, so it's not groundbreaking that a psychic would say that. Something that would be vague would be like, Jennifer Aniston is going to have a great year for love this year. It's not really something we can check or look into short of interviewing Jennifer Aniston, so we can't really make a judgment on that. But there are some that are just so ridiculous and have so little content that they don't even deserve to be called vague. I suggested making a whole new WTF category, but we were too far into the process at that point, so instead, we decided to share them with you lovely people. As a general rule, we found that some of the most long-winded, waffly, and wordy predictions involve the planets. Here's an example. This is from Edgar Winter in 2011. The entry of the planet Uranus into Aries sign will bring in new political leaders.
Because there are never any new political leaders, right, Kelly?
No, that's not how politics works, Adrienne.
And here's another one. And this one was in 2010, and it's from Yasmin Boland. And it's about Tiger Woods. And what she said was, the trouble with Tiger, it's Pluto. If you watched as Tiger Woods' endless stream of mistresses was revealed at the end of last year, think about this for a second. One girlfriend would make him a love rat. But 14? Surely that means he has a problem. As the purging planet Pluto, love the alliteration, moves through Capricorn, Tiger, like many Cappies, is going through a healing crisis. But Pluto clears out the crud. In this case, it's clearing out his life. No matter what your sign, if you're going through a clearing out, which is painful, wait and see. It's probably Pluto at work, and it could yet be the best thing to ever happen to you. It's a safe bet Tiger hopes so too.
Gotta clear out that crud. It sounds like you can just do whatever you want and then call in Pluto to clean it up, and you're good.
Yep, I'm going to keep that in mind.
So here is a favorite of the Prediction Project. This is where all of the non-Australians learned what the word clucky meant, because that is not a thing here. This one is from Jenny Bloom in 2011, and it's about Penelope Cruz. With clucky Venus growing even brighter over the next few years, there's no doubt family expansion is the name of the game. Stay tuned for more babies. Gotta look out for those babies when Venus is bright.
Yeah, I think I'm going to avoid clucky Venus if I can. My kids are all grown up. I think that's enough. It's a family show, right? Okay. So as shown with the previous planet predictions, politicians and celebrities are common fodder, but here's a favorite one. And it's from Serena Damon in 2010. And she says, a major Hollywood couple with connections to Europe will go their separate ways. So Kelly, I never knew that celebrities ever broke up. I thought they always stayed together.
Oh, that's news to me. But this is a standard psychic tactic. They mention a connection to Europe, and it can be anything. It can be a family member who went to Europe last month, or it can be something that they ordered from Europe. And suddenly, this super vague prediction seems like it's really, really specific because they knew about Europe, and how could they ever know about that? All right, here's one from Joy Arena in 2016. Many celebrities will be drawn to spirituality, some for their own understanding, and others for their own egos to be boosted. What? A celebrity with ego? Crazy. A celebrity will appear to be wanting to help others, yet only be trying to take their propaganda to the world.
What? I've never heard of a publicity stunt from a celebrity before. That's new.
Never. They don't do that.
Especially Gwyneth Paltrow. Of course, we can't leave out the quote-unquote spiritual predictions that give us a never heard before word salad. Rose Armitage in 2005 said, "A spiritual revolution could begin worldwide. Instead of people being preoccupied with their bodies, they will become much more interested in their souls."
Forget those pesky bodies. Who needs them, right?
Exactly.
All right, so now we have some sage advice for anybody who's looking to set or achieve their goals. This is from Allison Maiden in 2020. People becoming more disciplined, setting and achieving goals. That's the prediction.
Yeah, never heard that before.
But then she warned us, this is still in 2020, a massive shift is coming in everything.
Uh-oh, we better get ready.
Very specific.
Yeah, are you ready? And that's actually pretty soon, isn't it? 2020. All right. And then Rob Palmer's favorite, natural disasters. Natural disasters may happen as the Earth seeks to right herself, and while 2012 is a year of global changes, it isn't something to be feared. And that's from Lara Young in 2012.
Rob does love natural disasters. It's not often that when somebody hears about a natural disaster, their reaction is cheering. But according to Laura, that's the world's righting itself. So maybe we should all be cheering. Maybe Rob was right after all.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, here's a prediction for all of Townsville. So this is from Laura Young in 2012. If you're in Townsville, you probably remember this. There will be a lot of personal development for all Townsville people this year. No matter your direction, self-improvement is the name of the game, and it will see the general attitudes of the town beginning to change.
Yeah, so I guess we could go interview everyone who lived in Townsville in 2012 and see if anything in their life changed. But seriously, this is their MO. This prediction is impossible to check, so it's impossible for the psychics to be wrong. And then there's a lot of talk about the end of the world, or not. As in Flavia's 2004. We've been given 3 years to make a choice about what kind of society we want. I'm not saying it will be the end of the world, but I think by the end of 2007, we will say the world is truly a different place. Sometimes we push things so hard, we will find it impossible to turn back.
So it sounds to me like if things go well, then we clearly made the right choice, whatever choice that is. If they go badly, we obviously made the wrong choice. And either way, Flavia's right.
Exactly. It's a classic example of psychics covering all bases, but making it sounding profound and insightful, unless you look really closely at it.
Okay, I have another not quite end of the world prediction for you. This one's from Gwen Gordon in 2013. So, right after the world ended in 2012. The change of era, heralded by the end of the Mayan calendar, will slowly bring about a more peaceful world.
So their whole, quote, end of the world thing didn't work out, so they need to turn it into a metaphor.
Of course. All right, I have one last one for you, Adrienne.
Okay, I'm ready.
Psychics really love to give life advice that has this air of profundity, but they don't actually say anything new or mind-blowing. But I have the best piece of advice that you are ever going to get. All right, listen carefully. Ready?
I'm ready.
You might want to take some notes.
Got my pen ready.
All right, this is from Kathy O'Brien in 2013. People need to watch their diet and exercise more often. And remember to swim, especially in the desert.
I guess that means I can look forward to seeing everybody swimming in the desert. And I think that might be a really good note for me to go upstairs now and put on my swimsuit. With over 3,000 predictions in the project, we still have a lot more to put into our waffle file. But for now, this has been Adrienne Hill with Kelly Burke. Goodbye for now.
Hello, fellow skeptics. Do you want to be in my new song? This is Nathan Eggins, aka Conspiracy of One, and I'm releasing my new single, The Sound a Duck Makes, on September 10. But I need some volunteers. Go to conspiracyofonesolo.com and scroll down to the section marked Quack. Follow the instructions and your voice will be included in the song. Join in and help me finish this fun, skeptical song and remind people that we have a word for fake doctors. What sound does a duck make?
And now, a reading from the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham.
Hi, my name's Tim Mendham. I'm the editor of Australian Skeptics magazine, The Skeptic, and today I'll be reading from June 2015, which is volume 35, number 2 of The Skeptic magazine, which you can download, by the way, for free from our website, skeptics.com.au. And this time I'm reading from the column What Goes Around, which is a regular feature of the magazine in which we look at a particular fact or anecdote or whatever, and then by various strange connections work our way all the way back to the beginning where we started from. And this time I'll be looking at Seers, Spies, Scryers, and Satan. We start off with John Dee, it's D-E-E, who lived from 1527 to 1608 or perhaps 1609, no one's really sure. He was a mathematician, astronomer, philosopher and advisor to Queen Elizabeth I. One of the most learned men of his age, he had been invited to lecture on the geometry of Euclid at the University of Paris while still in his early 20s. Dee was an ardent promoter of mathematics and a respected astronomer, as well as a leading expert in navigation. In his lifetime, Dee amassed one of the largest libraries in England, at least 3,000 printed volumes and a large number of manuscripts. The library was pilfered during Dee's 6-year trip to the continent between 1583 and 1589, as well as after his death. People stealing books from libraries is pretty horrible. Now, his high status allowed him to play a role in Elizabethan politics, including as a covert operative for the Crown. In this capacity, he developed a code name that the Queen should use for him. 2 circles representing his eyes of the Queen, with 2 joining lines on the top and the right, which was seen as protection. In other words, 007. 7, of course, was an occult symbol, and Dee immersed himself in the study of magic, astrology and Hermetic philosophy. He devoted much time and effort in the last 30 years or so of his life to attempting to commune with angels in order to learn the universal language of creation and bring about the pre-apocalyptic unity of mankind. Now, during his long trip to the continent, when his library was pilfered, he sought to supernaturally contact angels through the services of Edward Kelly. It's Kelly with an EY at the end, who was a scryer, S-C-R-Y-E-R, or crystal gazer. Kelly's angels communicated to him in a special language called Enochian. Some modern cryptographers argue that Kelly invented it, and it is not clear whether Dee was a victim or an accomplice. Kelly, also known as Edward Talbot, who lived from 1555 to 97, apart from having the professed ability to summon spirits or angels in a shoe stone or a mirror, also claimed to possess the secret of transmuting base metals into gold, the gold of alchemy, of course, as well as having knowledge of the supposed philosopher's stone itself. Though the Enochian language is largely undecipherable, it's being described as a documentable case of true glossolalia, it has continued to be a source of inspiration for occultists, including the Rosicrucians and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And one of the key figures in the latter group, the Golden Dawn, was English ceremonial magician, poet, painter, novelist and mountaineer Aleister Crowley, who lived from 1875 to 1947. He joined the Golden Dawn in 1898. Crowley was described as a Satanist, an advocate of human sacrifice, despite denying both of those things. But his life has intrigued many people, including Jimmy Page, lead guitarist and founder of the rock band Led Zeppelin, who for a period of about 12 years owned Crawley's Boleskine house on the shores of Loch Ness. Now, rock bands, especially exponents of heavy metal and hard rock music, have regularly been described as encompassing satanic influences, particularly by fundamentalist Christian groups. They have suggested that the name of the band KISS stands for Knights in Satan's Service, sometimes Kids in Satan's Service. Of course, that extreme view is not helped sometimes by bands like Black Widow, who recorded a sort of satanic rock opera called Sacrifice, which starts off with the line, "Come, come, come to the Sabbath." So you would wonder that perhaps it is a bit satanic. And of course Black Sabbath, one of the most famous heavy metal bands, whose very name has satanic associations, though the band deny any association with Satanism. If you listen to the first album, you'd wonder about that. And Iron Maiden, whose third album is called Number of the Beast, and whose latest song, The Alchemist, is about John Dee and Edward Kelly. And perhaps to show their lighter, more caring side, a number of members of hard rock and supposedly satanic bands, including Black Sabbath lead guitarist Tony Iommi and Iron Maiden singer Bruce Dickinson, gathered in 1989 to record a song in aid of Armenia, which had just suffered a major earthquake. In the same vein as the much larger charity function Live Aid, Rock Aid Armenia recorded the Deep Purple song Smoke on the Water. And this project was initiated and coordinated by an international charity campaigner and the founder of Planet Ark. His name? John Dee, a descendant of the Elizabethan celebrity. And that's what goes around from the Skeptic magazine, June 2015, volume 35, number 2, which you can download and have a read for free from our website, skeptics.com.au. And while you're there, click on the link to subscribe. You know it makes sense.
Oh no, COVID-19 is out and about in Sydney once again. And we can't have skeptics in the pub for July. But there's good news. We can still have skeptics in the pub online. Join Sydney Skeptics in the Pub online. In July, our special guest speaker will be Gideon Majowicz-Katz. And he will talk about coffee. Is it good for your health? Is it bad? The internet is awash with conflicting information. Gid will examine where the truth lies. It may be somewhere in between. Gid is an epidemiologist working in chronic diseases with a particular focus on the social determinations that control our health. He writes a regular health blog covering science communication, public health, and what that new study you've been reading about actually means. He is also a member of the Committee of Australian Skeptics, Inc. Join us on the 1st of July, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, online. You can register at Meetup, links in this week's show notes, or just bookmark www.twitch.tv/Australian Skeptics. Is coffee good for you? I certainly hope so. Find out for yourself at Sydney Skeptics in the Pub, Thursday the 1st of July, 7 p.m. Sydney time. Now it's time once more to look into the pages of Trove at trove.nla.gov.au, the online resource from the Australian Government and the National Library of Australia. Hats off to those people for at least putting together the Trove archives. This week I thought we'd look for a couple of words in the same article, the word psychic and the word fraud. And not all the results are what you might expect. Let's kick off randomly in the year 1989, the 6th of June, from the Canberra Times. Psychic sued for fraud. Melbourne. A teacher who claimed to be psychic had conned people into believing crazy ideas that he did not even believe himself, a barrister told the county court yesterday. Felicity Hampel made the allegation during cross-examination of John Fitzsimmons, 41, of Clayton, who claims he is a psychic healer and can talk to spirits which have predicted the end of the world. Miss Hampel was appearing for 3 former disciples of Mr. Fitzsimmons who are suing him for allegedly making fraudulent misrepresentations about curing illnesses and for other claims. Judge Gorman has been told the trio spent a total of almost $70,000 on courses run by Mr. Fitzsimmons after he predicted the world would end and that they needed spiritual protection. Ms. Hampel said to Miss Simmons, "You conned these people into believing the catastrophes were coming, and you conned them into parting with money claiming they wouldn't need assets." She said at the time Mr. Fitzsimmons bought a house and made considerable money on his psychic courses. "I suggest that all of this was just a sham, an easy way of making money from people who were probably too gullible and trusting," she said. "You conned them into believing a system of crazy values you didn't even believe yourself," she told Mr. Fitzsimmons. The case continues today. Maybe we should spend some time later on and find out whatever happened in that case. Now let's spin the dial on our time machine, and we've landed in the year 1906 from the West Gippsland Gazette in Victoria, 4th of September. A new fraud. Psychic advice. Mr. W.B. Northrop relates in a journal devoted to psychical science and confessions of a spiritualist named Mansfield, who drove a thriving trade in New York as, quote, psychic advisor, end quote, to dabblers in stocks. The advisor, hearing of a visit from a victim, would write a spirit message from the late Jay Gould, or other millionaire, on a slate, which was then covered with a kind of a second frame. When the victim called, the slate could be held under the table, while the spirit wrote on it, the second frame being removed at the same time. The slate, with the message visible, was then produced. Mansfield was hand in glove with a well-informed stockbroker, and thus gave his dupes some occasionally excellent advice. And now we find ourselves in the year 1932, Saturday the 2nd of April, from the Mail in Adelaide, South Australia. Spirit hand rings bell at seance. Psychic phenomena stirs audience. Quote, no fraud, end quote. The Mail, Special Representative, London, today. Psychic phenomena, described as the most extraordinary scene in London, including a spirit hand which rang a bell, is reported from a national psychic research séance. Rudy Schneider, a young Australian medium, was subject for 2 months to the most rigorous tests, with negative results, but recently 11 excited people were amazed by a phenomena. Mr. Harry Price, director of the Psychic Research Laboratory, says that there was no possibility of fraud. Rudy was seated several feet distant from the zone of activity. 2 persons held his wrists. He went into a trance quickly, breathing like a steam engine. We heard the voice of Olga, his spirit control, and we asked her if she wanted music, as we had previously assisted her in the chorus of John Brown's Body, said Mr. Price. She replied in the negative, and chatted freely. Suddenly, a handkerchief placed in the path of the invisible ray began to rise, and knotted itself, after which a child's hand, upon which the nails were visible, was seen holding the handkerchief. Invisible rays then rang a warning bell. The hand moved towards and almost touched one of the observers. Lord Charles Hope threw a bunch of violets from his buttonhole on to the thin gauze protecting the rays. Immediately the violets were picked up, torn to pieces, and scattered. 4 cameras secured photographs of the manifestations. Mr. Price added, we offer no explanation of the phenomena. We are only concerned whether the medium's claims are true. We are fully satisfied with Schneider, who is the sheet anchor of psychic research and is the biggest paid medium in the world. It's one of those times where I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall, or seen this for myself firsthand, in other words. And where do we end up next? Let's spin the dial and come to the year 1928, the 16th of September, Sunday Times from Perth, Western Australia. Spiritualists, a bombshell for them. Famous psychic experts' declaration. Into the storm of controversy, aroused as a result of what has been described as the, quote, spiritualist test case, end quote, at Westminster Police Court, a bombshell has been dropped by Mr. J.I.D. Bristol, president of the American Society for Psychical Research. He has just sailed for New York after a visit to Europe, says Reynolds Illustrated News. In an interview on the eve of his departure, he said, despite all the years of intense study and investigation, there is as yet no definitive evidence of life after death. We are investigating any phenomena which are not understood, and some of us are hoping that we will eventually find evidence for something beyond the grave. So far, however, I must confess that research has not revealed anything which indicates a continuation of personality after death. Houdini's great gift. In Houdini, the famous handcuff king, an illusionist, added Mr. Bristol, America had a wonderful investigator. He had a perfect gift of discovering fraud, and he was a tireless worker. But neither he nor Professor Hyslop, for many years our secretary, has communicated with us since their death. Fraudulent claims to the contrary notwithstanding. Mr. Bristol added that evidence which could not be subjected to impartial critical scrutiny was not worth anything. Countless stories which seemed to provide pure proof of genuine telepathy at first sight failed under the strictest test. Our society, he went on, hears hundreds of such stories, yet we have investigated so many thousands, finding them to be built on coincidences, exaggeration, or hallucination, and the classic example which occurred to our Vice President in London a year ago is not accepted by our investigators. An amazing trance. The vice president of the American Society, Mr. Bristol related, was introduced to a famous mystic as, quote, Mr. Scott of Australia, end quote. According to the official, the medium, a woman, went into a trance and, penetrating his false name, told him of the death that evening of a member of his family in America. The official returned to his hotel and found a cable which agreed in every detail with the medium's statement. It would seem that we would have to believe this, said Mr. Bristol. But we could not, because it was a story. The conditions cannot be duplicated. We have only the word of a couple of friends that it happened. While we must treat their statements with respect, we should not be doing our duty as a scientific body if we accepted such testimony instead of insisting upon definite and incontrovertible proof. 400-years-old Indian. Although the summons against the two women defendants in the case at Westminster Police Court concerned fortune-telling, the fact that they were both prominent members of the London Spiritualist Alliance, of which Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is president, invariably brought before the court the great problem of survival after death. Sir Arthur also gave evidence, as did that other famous champion of psychical research, Sir Oliver Lodge. One of the defendants, Mrs. C. Cantillon, the well-known medium, who was stated to have acted as, quote, control, end quote, for White Chief, a Sioux who lived 400 years ago. And just quickly, Sioux is referring to the First Nations of the Americas. So that's SIOUX. In dismissing under the First Offenders Act the summons against Mrs. Cantillon and the other defendant, Miss Mercy Phillimore, Secretary of the Alliance, the magistrate, Mr. Alton, said he had a perfectly open mind about spiritualism, and he had assumed that Mrs. Cantillon did believe she was under the control of this chief, his black dog, and his white rabbits, and other things that belonged to him. But, added Mr. Alton, I should strongly advise her to get rid of a disembodied spirit who wants to know the time for lunch and tea. Miss Phillimore was ordered to pay £20 cost, and Mrs. Cantillon £10. Sir A. Conan Doyle's protest. Among the varied opinion on the case, one of the most spirited comments is made by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who strongly protests against such police prosecutions. He said that many spiritualists believe mediums as those angels of the church to whom Paul alludes. This being so, he contends, any legal action which forbids or restricts them is to that extent religious persecution. That the police should be employed on such a matter is deplorable, especially as their activities take hateful shapes of agents provocateurs. Our demands are moderate and reasonable. What we wish, as a minimum, is that all registered spiritualistic churches and all serious societies for the study of psychic matters should be exempt from police prosecution. We hold no belief for the mere fortune-teller, whose work has no religious significance and no guarantee of sincerity. Sir Oliver Lodge said he was satisfied from his scientific experience that there were media who were perfectly genuine in the work they did. There were also others. As far as the duties of the media are concerned, added Sir Oliver, it is a kind of human faculty who do not understand, but which we are trying to investigate. The Society for Psychical Research, of which I have been a member since 1882, was founded to investigate supernormal human faculties, whatever they may be. Media are the instruments for the purpose of that study. With apologies to the various people involved whose voices I tried to copy, probably very poorly. Sorry about that, Sir Arthur. I'm sure he'll forgive me. Now we find ourselves in the year 1935 for our final entry. On the 23rd of July, Tweed Daily. And that paper came from the the city of Murwillumbah in northern New South Wales. Are spiritualists right? Psychic phenomena to be tested by special instruments. London, July 6, by airmail. Details of new scientific experiments to prove or disprove the existence of life after death were revealed this week by Dr. Nandor Fodor, who heads the most intensive psychic research movement ever known in Britain. He told about a, quote, cloud chamber, end quote, which makes visible a certain form of energy given off by bodies after death. An electrical device to record the voices of dead people heard at direct voice seances. An infrared cinematograph film which registers changes in the features of a medium. Psychic phenomena do exist, said Dr. Fodor. What we are endeavouring to do is provide the layman with evidence that these phenomena are genuine and, if possible, to give proof of the source from which they originate. Dr. Fodor and his associates at the Institute for Psychical Research are not spiritualists, although they are not opposed to the belief. He told of experiments made with mice placed in the cloud chamber, a glass cylinder to which are attached various tubes containing mercury and compressed air. The mice are killed in the chamber, in which a vacuum is created. The moisture occasioned by the vacuum forms a cloak around the, quote, energy, end quote, given off by the body. It is eventually hoped to prove that every living creature possesses a vehicle through which intelligence may be expressed in a life beyond this. Another invention is an electrical sound recorder which makes permanent records on wax discs. Records are being made by people now living so that they should appear at a séance after death, and accurate voice comparison can be made. The recorder's greatest use will be as a guarantee against fraud during a dark séance, for the sensitive mic picks up the faintest sound, such as a whisper or movement by the medium, Dr. Fodor explained. The apparatus for photographing by infrared and ultraviolet rays has already been used. New experiments with ultraviolet rays and a quartz lens, which can transmit waves ordinary glass would reject, will, it is hoped, render photography of the unseen a fact. And there we are, just some of the interesting results returned when we run a search through the Trove archives on the word psychic and the word fraud in the same article. And, we can look back at those past times and read the reports and the accounts of various people like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and sort of have a bit of a wry smile. But this sort of thing still goes on. There are thousands, millions of people around the world who simply still believe in most of this sort of thing. Although, there are trends, fads come and go. Channeling is a classic example of a fad that comes and goes, or I don't think it's been around for a while now. But yes, all those interesting reports from history are at your fingertips at trove.nla.gov.au. But as ever, you can always check out what your local area or your country has to offer in the form of digitised archives. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. And as you would have heard in this week's episode, we bid a sad farewell to the Zealot podcast, a podcast I enjoyed very much. And well done to Jo Thornley and her friends for producing that interesting, entertaining and educational podcast. And also you would have heard from Nathan Eggins about his new song, What Sound Does a Duck Make?, where he wants you to send in the word quack. So, this is for you, Nathan. Quack. 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 Maybe you can use that. Don't worry, Nathan, I'll send that to you separately. But yes, just follow the link in this week's show notes, say quack a few times, send it in to Nathan, and you too may well end up on his new song. And another thing to look out for in this week's show notes, I've linked to the Tea Room, which is the podcast from the Medical Republic magazine. Now, a few weeks ago on the Skeptic Zone, you may remember that Daryl Cahoon and Penny Durham and I visited Mind Body Wallet, Mind Body Spirit. Well, the podcast from the event from the side of the Medical Republic has just been put out, and Penny interviews me at the event, and also they talk to Professor Ken Harvey. And they go into some detail about regulation for medical devices. I encourage you to go there, follow the link in the show notes and listen to it. And please read the comments. They're interesting. Comments along the lines of, how dare skeptics comment in a medical podcast? Sometimes I think people just don't get it. Anyway, if you want to listen to that podcast and then add your own comments, I think that would be appreciated. Coming up on next week's show, no Book of Tim. Oh, I know, that's sad, yes, because we've run out of Books of Tims. Books of Tims? Sounds like a box of Tim Tams. I am going to visit Tim as soon as the lockdown is over, and we will record more Book of Tims. Books of Tim, whatever it is. In fact, I'm going to take a little portable studio this time for slightly better sound. And what else is coming up next week? Well, I don't know. We'll have to all wait 1 week and find out. But for this week, oh, just before I go, I do have some Easter eggs on the show this week, so keep listening. And please bear in mind, if you're playing the dice game this week, the die I use has 4 sides. Keep that in mind. It's a 4-sided die. But until next week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation. Right. Now that we're all together. Hello, folks. We're just doing the Great Australian Prediction Project. I'm with the little team here. We've got Lou, we've got Kelly, Leonard, and Susan and Adrienne. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Richard.
And Susan. Oh, there's Susan. She was on mute. We'll do a quick dice game. We didn't have one last week. We had a bit of silliness with Tim Mendham and I trying to do some recording. I'm going to roll this dice, and it's up to you at home and you folks in the virtual room we've got here for the prediction projects. And incidentally, we are looking at the major events of the year 2002, not predicted by psychics, and that's a very interesting project. Let's call out some numbers. What do we have?
3.
5.
5 says
I'm going to do 3 because good things happen in 3s. Or is it bad things happen in 3s?
All of the things happen in
All things happen in 3s.
And all right, so let's see. The first roll of the dice, you playing at home, guess away. What number's going to come up? Here it comes.
5.
It's a 1. I'll write that down somewhere. First number this week is 1. Okay, second number. Guess away. What do I hear?
Remember, there's only one die.
2.
Right?
Yep.
5.
3. 3.
5.
5 sisters. Okay, here it comes. It's 4.
This isn't right. 5 should come up sometimes.
You
This
think?
is stupid. It's
Okay.
getting to be stupid
I
now.
promise you, Susan, I'm accurately telling you what the number is. And the last roll. Guess away.
3.
5.
3.
Here it comes. Oh, it's another 1. So,
See, this is not right. The odds are that it should be 5 at least 20% of the time. And it is 5 like 1% of the time or something. So something isn't right. There's
today's...
something wrong here.
I'm losing it. Today's winning numbers, folks, for you playing at home. 1, 4, and 1. And now I get to show the gang here on the video the die I've been using. There we are. It's a 4-sided die.
No. And that couldn't hit 5. That's not fair.
But still, none of us got it. We all knew that it was four-sided.
Did you?
Yes.
Where was
No,
I?
we did.
In
You were
your
having
car,
lunch.
having lunch.
Susan, we are
Little
psychic.
snots.
We are psychic. We
You guys
knew.
are snots.
All right, for Susan's...
I
just
told you something was wrong. Didn't I say something was wrong?
You did.
I
For
called it.
Susan, we'll do the supplementary using a D20, and I'll hold it up. There it is. I promise you.
D20.
It is. It is. Okay, call out those numbers.
It's going to be a 5.
17.
12.
3.
Here it comes.
4.
And the lucky winning number is 11.
11.
Ever.
Thanks,
That's close to
everybody.
12.
You guys are not
Close
funny.
enough to 11. I mean, really.
And Rose Armitage in 2005 said, "A spiritual revolution could begin worldwide."
I'm sorry, that was so good. It just threw me off. I'm sorry. Do it exactly like that again, and I promise I won't crack up.
Okay, where was I? Oh, yeah. I'll start with the prediction because I think we were good until then.
Yeah.
Then we started giggling. I don't know what made me decide to do that.
I loved
I'll
it, though. Do it. I just wasn't ready for it.